Welcome back to the Health, Weight Loss and Wellness Show. And today our very special guest is Lolita Guarin. Now, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, so forgive me. But Lolita is a stress management expert, author of the book Crush Stress While You Work, online course author and speaker. And she came to the US from Lithuania, excuse me, I was slowed down, 20 years ago and worked in the oil and gas sector, which is a massive sector. But as an adult child of an alcoholic, she became a workaholic that stressed herself into health problems. From there, she learned how to manage stress naturally and now teaches others to do the same. And this topic is one of my favorites because stress sent me down a rabbit hole. So we'll get into that in a minute, but thank you so much for coming on the show and giving us your time.
Well, thank you so much for inviting, Jody.
You're welcome. Being a workaholic, I get that because that's what I was, right? And that really sent me down a rabbit hole of overworking, not listening to myself, stress, and then became chronic fatigue. But, you've got a bit of a backstory. Maybe you might want to dive a little bit further into your story so we can relate to you as well.
So when I came to the US, I knew if I will work hard, then I definitely can achieve my American dream, and I can work and I'll be rewarded. And really, you don't have to be in any other country at all. You could work in any country. You can work in as big or a small company. You could be a boss for yourself and be all stressed out. So it doesn't really the environment that really makes you sick. Is you yourself making sick, how you react to that environment, to that outcoming stress. And what happened to me, I just thought I have to prove it to myself. I have to prove it to my parents, to the bosses that I can take up work. And I was taking multiple projects. And the funny thing is that multiple people were not really talking to themselves about the workload that they both or three people will give me. So I end up with so many projects, and I was afraid to say no. That's also comes from, people pleasing, and especially being a woman, you're afraid to say no because, well, they will look at you down, and you try, especially in the workplace environment, you're trying to prove that you're as good as men are. And if you are a woman right now and you have your own business, oh my gosh, that's like double the heart because you have to work 24/7. And you have this pressure of showing the rest of the family and those that that, yes, you can be successful and you can run your family and your business and everybody around. And the problem is that women and men handle stress very differently. And in the very high demand environment, men thrive. Well, that's nature, like they all happy about going a project and finishing up. But we women are more nurturers, so we get into a situation. It can be in the work environment, in the family environment, anywhere where stress is. We don't really know how to manage stress because nobody told us about that. So we cannot thrive in the testosterone-driven environment, and so we need to know how to de-stress in order not to get sick. And especially right now, I didn't notice I have a lot of clients who are single mothers and they're running their own business and they're like solopreneurs, and they're struggling so hard because they have to do it all. They have all those hats and they have no time. And I have clients who I tell them, why don't you just stop 1 minute every hour? And that's one tip. Just put your alarm on and stop whatever you're doing. Of course, if you're not driving and not operating heavy machinery, just stop whatever you're doing, breathe in, breathe out. And if you're afraid you're going to fall asleep, put an alarm for 1 minute, right? And then just give yourself a little break, and that will carry on, energy level through the rest of your day. But just giving yourself a little thing can make that. And I was afraid to do that. I was afraid to close my eyes, yet alone go exercise. I will just get up from my desk to go use the ladies' room, and no exercise. I was eating very bad diet, whatever was in the lunchroom, and usually it's like frozen pizza or donuts. So my nutrition was very bad. No exercise. I was totally overworked. I was afraid to say no. I had coworkers coming to me and asking for help, and I'm a people pleaser. I'm going to help them. end up working weekends, no lunch breaks, until to the point, and women, when we all stressed out, it totally just ruins our hormones. And until I just collapsed on the kitchen floor in the middle of the night and, had to go to the emergency room because, and they like, well, that's what it is. You just run yourself to the ground. And I was thinking, get out of here. I'm in my 30s. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
And what was sad when I told my coworker, and I said, this is what happened to me. They're all looking at me like, big deal. We're all stressing out. And that is the problem in our society right now.
And they're the ones that giving you all the work and then gave you no sympathy along with it.
And they think it's fine. We all stressed out, but it shouldn't be that way, because when you think about it, in nature, there is stress too. I mean, look at the grass. Grass can grow through a cement, right? But it does. So obviously it's doing something right. So I learned how there are natural ways how to manage your stress so you don't end up collapsing at the end of it. And it just became my passion. It was like, I have to teach others, and I say stress management doesn't have to be stressful. It's like, don't stress about it, don't add on more to it.
I can relate to so many things that you're saying in your story. So I hope those listening at home are also relating as well. And I think you're right with women being nurturers. And I think we stress over a project, I think, because we emotionally attach to the work that we're doing, right? So we put our emotions into it, where I think men don't. They go at it differently. They're not emotionally attached to it, where I think that we are. That's how we work. So I really feel like once we understand that we are emotional beings and that we are going to emotionally attach to our projects or whatever it is that we're doing, it's how that, that's okay, but how do we then disconnect that, which is something that's so natural for us to emotionally attach to? And I guess it's that selective attachment where we emotionally attach to people and projects, and that I find myself going, taking so many things that you said, like taking a break, not even taking a break to go to the toilet, putting work before your nutrition, before movement. I was a workaholic. That was the worst thing that I would do. I would work like 15 hours days, and I would get up and I'd be like, oh, I feel like I'm in the shape of a chair, because I would just be in that shape. And having that and the emotional attachment to every word that you're putting on your website when you're creating your web page, that stress in the body. And then, like you said, we've got family, we've got houses to maintain, we've got dinner to cook when we get home, and then we've got people that may be critical if your house is a mess, so you've got to keep it straight, all of that, plus take on all the work and be a support to people in our working environment as well, to get a leg up, because women were, you're right, looked at a lesser species in the working environment. And I don't care what they say now, it's something that I've experienced as well. Being at companies where it's the boys club and they all go and play squash together, and they all get promoted even though they had totally less skills. We had to really prove that we were worth the role that we were in, and be passed over and over for roles, or be called emotional, or all those things. So, there was just so much I related in that. So if we want to, we recognize ourselves in this, in you and me, if somebody listening is recognizing themselves in us and they want to stop that, they understand it's really bad for our health, and they want to stop responding to things that are going on with stress, what would you say would be the strategy for them?
First of all, we need to understand one thing, that our health, it should be our priority. You have no idea how many clients I have. They come to me and they say, no, you don't get it. I don't have time for this. And I say, okay, why you don't have time for this? They say, well, because I'm running business, I have to take care of my family. I have to feed my kids. I'm single mother. There's no time for me to do your meditation for 10 minutes. And I say, okay, so right now you don't have time to take care of yourself because of your family. You have to give yourself to them, right? Right. No brainer, right? And then I say, okay, so when you get sick because of distress,
Yeah.
and you will get in the hospital, and you cannot cook that dinner, who's going to take care of the family? And then they look at me with eyes like, oh, shoot, I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, we don't, do we?
So why don't even go there? You know, when we're in the airplane and they say, first you put the mask on yourself and then you put on the person next to you or the loved one or the kids or somebody. And you totally no-brainer. We're like, yeah, that totally makes sense because I need to get oxygen so I can help them.
Yeah.
Well, how come it cannot be with stress the same way? With everything, we have to take care of ourselves first so we can help those that we love. You cannot pour out of empty pitch. And then it looks to us totally makes sense. But when it comes to day-to-day environment, we kind of get lost. We're like, no, I don't have time for this. And that also comes especially for women, and what I notice with my clients is the guilt. That's like you have to go, 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 go. And it's like men, for example, there is a culture of if the man comes back home, they have a right to just flop on the sofa and watch TV for the rest of the evening and wait until the dinner is going to be served. But in today's environment, let's say it was in the 1950s, the woman does the house and takes care of the kids and she doesn't go to work. And then the man will bring the beef home and he doesn't work he doesn't take care of the kids and the dinner on that. But right now, women they have to work full time, they come back and they still need to take care of the kids, they still need to do the dinner, and the men kind of the same. There are plenty of amazing partners who help the wives, the women, and there's with communication, and there's amazing, unions that work very well and they do 50-50. But the majority not. And women, like you mentioned, we feel ashamed if our houses is disorganized. And this is where that guilt come from. That's why my clients come to me and they're like, you don't understand, I don't have that 10 minutes. So my advice is, first of all, stop feeling guilty. And that guilt needs to stop because you need to help your family. So when you're taking that 10 minutes break, think about it, you're doing this for your kids. Because then you will be able to take care of them. And then next step is you need to remember that you are worthy and good enough to take care of yourself. You deserve to be healthy because you're an amazing human being. So take care of yourself so others can enjoy you and you can enjoy you. That's your life purpose, because if you cannot take care of your body, the body's not gonna, take care of you. In this, look, if like we all have cars, the majority of those who are listening, and we have a maintenance every 5,000-10,000 feet, change the oil and all of this, and we're like, you have to take care of your car or the car will break down. But we don't think about our bodies the same way. So that's, and the last step, like I say, stress management doesn't have to be stressful. There are small things that you can do through the day. They don't even take that much time. You don't have to run to 45 minutes yoga every day. You don't have to. If you have that time to invest in yourself, amazing. But there's so many little things that you can do that doesn't, take a lot of your time and energy. So that will be one that you can manage your energy levels and stress levels all through the day. But also I'll recommend to have what they call a stress management toolbox. It's for things that happen without planning, right? There's something stressful, you're gonna need to pick up the kids, you need to have the clients, and this stress that repeats itself. So you can foresee how stressed you will be and you can manage that, but you also need to know how to manage stress when it comes unexpectedly, just right in your face.
Okay, that's really good tips. And there's so many things in there that you're saying that I'm like, oh yeah, I need to implement that. And it was something that was I admittedly would struggle myself, is stopping, and putting myself first. And I still catch myself doing it now, but now I'm more aware. So I really like those tips that you've given us. So if people learn by watching others and other people's examples. So have you got an example of a client that came in stressed and implemented those strategies, and what the result was, what they did, what the outcome was for them, just so that those listening can, see that, hope for themselves, but also, learn from what somebody else's experience was.
I had an amazing client. She just started her own business, solopreneur, wearing lots of hats, and she was scheduled for neck surgery. She told me that she wanted to do a chiropractor. She was going to a masseuse, and she just had pain in her neck. And they were running tests, and they thinking that there's something wrong with the spine and all kinds of stuff. And so when she came to me, she was in pain. She had to take painkillers. And after some time, and I think about 2 months, she usually, when I say you need at least a month or two until you pick up new habits. The brain needs some time to pick up new habits and grow new neurons and make your life just a life-changing experience. Lifestyle change. And after that, she said she started noticing that she doesn't have pain in her neck anymore. Then the pain in the neck disappeared because it was totally stress based.
Yeah.
So
wow.
She could be going to the masseuse, she could be going to chiropractor, like, well, I don't know, I'm still in pain. So like maybe there's something wrong with, with the bones in your neck and something punching a nerve, something. No, for now it was totally stress based.
Wow. It's interesting because, I've had this back injury myself for 12 months, and where I feel like I'm managing stress. So listening to you, I'm like, I wonder if I'm just masking it in another way. And so I'm going to think about how I'm going to implement some of your strategies there, so I can, create some awareness around that and make sure that, even recently just put in my calendar lunch breaks.
Perfect. Yes, you have to schedule time with yourself.
I'm like,
I applaud to you.
I didn't even schedule breaks in a day. So people would get into my calendar and I was just back to back. And so I'm like, oh my God, I've not even scheduled a break to go to the toilet. I'm thinking I'll put buffer between my meetings, right? And that's enough. And then I look at my calendar and it's like 3 days back to back. And I'm like, yeah, that's not going to work. So now I've actually blocked in breaks during the day. I'm looking at my calendar right now, during the day and at lunchtime. And I did it for the first time yesterday. And I'm like, oh, wow, this was such a nicer day. I mean, it was a long day, but it was a freer flowing day. And I think, part of me was like, well, I'll get it all done in one, in the block. But what happened was, it got done in that block, but then it filled right up. So I was full from 10 till 9 o'clock at night. And I'm like, well, I can't keep doing that. I can't keep, working at that kind of level, because it does create stress in your body, like you said. And I'm wondering now, I'm like, oh, what if this back pain is because of that? And I'm sitting here, I'm like, oh, my neck's sore. But, I've got a lot going on right now. So thank you for that.
And I can sorry to interrupt. And the best way is how you can bring new habits is to attaching them to the old habits. So let's say if you have a lunch and you finish eating and you tell yourself, now I'm going to sit for 1 minute or two and I'm going to do nothing. I'm just going to close my eyes and just breathe in, breathe out.
Yeah. Yeah. Meditation is a wonderful tool. And I love that the tips that you're giving feels like it's around mindfulness for me, and like being mindful that you're in pain, and then being mindful about what you're doing throughout the day, and stopping in those moments and having a nice deep breath, doing your meditation or something like that to release the stress. Because if we're not doing anything at all to release the stress, then we're not releasing any stress. It's staying in our body. So I'm sitting here as you're talking, I'm like, oh, I think I need to make some changes. So For those who are watching right now and say, I feel like this has been a long-term thing for me, stress. So it's a very important topic. And I find that it is a factor with a lot of clients that I see as well. And say somebody has been, dealing with things in their lives with stress for a long time, right? So their response is stress. And they've been doing it for a long time. And they really want life to be different. They want to change. They want to supercharge their energy, how they're feeling. With regards to stress, what would be your number one suggestion for where they can start?
First, you need to identify where that stress is coming from. If there's stress, let's say, coming from workplace environment, and we overworked, and you afraid to say no to the supervisor that you just don't have enough time physically to accomplish everything, then you need to approach a supervisor and say, look, this is what it is. Now, you must be afraid to ask that. So then you need to ask yourself, why am I afraid of that? Why am I afraid? Because you are a people pleaser and you are afraid to disappoint somebody. So then you need to go down deeper levels and see where is that coming from. A lot of stress management techniques that we talk in generally, like meditating, doing yoga, I would think that is a very good, like a bandage. It's that something like when you just cut your finger and then you put the bandage on and it helps you that day and then it heals tomorrow.
Yeah.
Or in a week. But a lot of wounds that we have are so deep, like childhood traumas, that they are bleeding, that one bandage is not going to help. Maybe it will prevent it today, but it's going to continue bleeding. So you need to kind of go deep down and see what are my patterns are. Am I a people pleaser? Am I afraid to say no? Why am I stressing so much? Am I feeling, the fear of abandonment? Why am I worried so much about, oh, my kids went to school and I'm afraid that something will happen to them? And you constantly, chronically feel stress. And why is that? So, you need to kind of go deep down where those patterns come from, why you think that way. Like I heard there was a client that was just hating go to the McDonald's, and he didn't even know why he was afraid to go to McDonald's. And then turned out that when he was a child, his parents divorced and they told him about it when he was eating in McDonald's. So you can have the childhood traumas that really kind of ignites stress every time you see something. It's like a trigger to you. So when there's, I would recommend if there's something that comes once in blue moon or something happened, then, just something happened and you apply some calming down strategies and you move on. But if there is a pattern that there's coming from somewhere, you can do as many meditations as you want. But if you feel, if you have a childhood trauma that you don't feel safe, you don't feel secure, you don't feel loved, or you don't feel appreciated, then you need to tackle those those traumas first. But I just say, we have a journal, right? We all of us have a journal. So in that journal, you need to write it down a few things. Number one, you need to give yourself credit. So write it down, all of those things that you accomplished up to today. And that will help you to read that list. And the small things, even got the driving license, to finish school or anything. And then especially in the environment that you feel, I'm not a good mom, I am not a good coworker, I'm not a good business person, oh, I suck. Look at that list and think, you know what, if I accomplished that much, I accomplished even more. And right now I'm stressing out about this interview that I'm going to do with this client. Look at the list. You went through more things than you know. You can handle that interview as well. Our brain loves proof. So prove to yourself that it's okay. Then I will recommend you, if there's something that, let's say, worries you every time, like let's say you're afraid that you will not find a job, or you will lose your job, and you constantly having this fear of, oh my gosh, I wake up in the morning and I don't know, will they let me go today or not? And funny, I had that fear like that. And so what you do, you just sit down and you write it down, your emergency plan. What is that you're going to do if that happens? and then write it down. What is the worst thing that can happen? Like, okay, you have to sell the house, you need to move in with the basement to your mom, you need to, what is the worst thing? And then when your brain already is introduced with the worst thing that can happen to you, it's kind of accepts that and says, okay, fine, now we know. So then when that idea comes in, like, oh my God, I'm going to lose my job or my business will fail, then well, you know what? I already know what I'm going to do. So that's not that scary anymore.
Yeah, they're really good. So what I'm hearing is, first off is really look at your why, what it is that is creating that stress. Why are you stressing in that moment, and going deeper. And, I deal a lot with the childhood wounds and inner child, outer child. So I get that. And when you did that, I'm like, okay, so my example there for those who are listening at home, both my parents worked when I grew up, and it was at the time when women couldn't get a job. So my mum had to tell her workplace that she didn't have children so she could get a job, right? So, but what that also meant that, they had a work ethic that didn't matter whether you were ill or not, you went to work. So it didn't matter if we were ill or not, we went to school. And so it was ingrained in me, like we've all got really good work ethics. And so have my kids now, because I passed it on. But if we're not well, like it was frowned upon. If you took a day off because you were sick, you were a blood jar, or, you were a slacker, things like, that wasn't from my family, but you would get that in the workplace, especially if you're a woman and you have a child or have children. You also get that, that feedback that you can't take time off because you've got kids, and that's not an excuse. So for me, that's kind of from a childhood into adulthood has manifested in a way that even if I'm not well, I'll keep going and I'll keep pushing. And I always did that, right? So for those listening at home, hopefully that example helps you. So go back and figure out where that's actually coming from in the first place. So that's where it came from in the first place. And I'm like, well, is that right? Is it true? And like what you were saying, really ask yourself in those moments, is it right and is it true? And reframing was the other thing that I heard, reframing those things that you're saying to yourself, and framing them into a more positive light. So for me in that example, it'd be like, okay, so you have to work even if you're sick. And then I can go, well, no, that's not true. And that's unhealthy, and that I'm more important. So reframing it in that way. And the other thing that you said, now it's forgotten me, I've forgotten it with my menopause brain. So it was reframing. So first off, it was understanding where that's coming from, why you're reacting that way. Then it was reframing. And then the last one, remind me again, the last thing you suggested.
Well, you have to have the tools when it comes for the stress that is every day and, recurring, and when you have to know how you can manage stress when something just comes at you.
Right, of course, the important part, which is the tools for stress. So thank you for that. I mean, I think that really, really helpful. And I think on a conscious level, I knew that maybe where that's come from, but I think having these conversations really helps you hone in on things that you're experiencing. I don't know, sometimes we need to hear things a few times and from somebody else to realize what it is that you're doing. And I just kind of had that aha moment when you were talking about that, because when you said that about, figuring out where it came from, like it just came to me. I'm like, oh, that's probably why I do, even if I wasn't well, I would keep pushing through, is because, that was just a thing that you did, so that's where it's come from. And that's how it manifested in my adult life, was to keep going. And even when I was really, really ill and couldn't hardly even get off the couch, and my body couldn't even process food, it would want to shut down, I would still want to push myself. And so that's me understanding where that's come from. It's really helping me thinking about it in a different light when I'm not feeling well, and really listening to my body and paying attention to what's going on with me. So thank you for that. It was a little aha moment for me. Hopefully those listening at home can relate. And I find that I learn when I'm hearing other people's stories, like what you've told me. And I know that others do too. So hopefully you can relate. Now you have a special gift that you want to share with the audience, and it's going to be so helpful. I'm definitely going to be using it myself. You want to share what that is with us?
I think in today's environment, especially going through pandemic, we were so attached to anything that's internet and especially social media. I think social media is a very good thing when it comes to connecting people. And then we don't feel so lonely. We see what others doing, and we have chit chats and FaceTiming, and we messaging, and we have communication, and it's a great thing. But also social media is such a thing that it stresses us. It becomes addictive. And I read an article that says it's like a slot machine. It's addictive. In that little scrolling through this, when you're looking at your cell phone and you're scrolling down to see the posts, like they never end. And that's actually works the same part of the brain when you are like just in a slot machine that continuously want to win. And we get to the point that we're driving and we're messaging, and we don't pay attention to kids and we're messaging. And I remember one coach said, there's nothing more heartbreaking when you can see 6-year-old soccer game when all the kids want to show how good they are, and all the parents now watching the kids and watching at the cell phones and messaging and doing all this. The kids are heartbroken because the mommy daddy not paying attention to them. So what is that you're doing? You're creating childhood trauma, because they will feel they're not good enough. So I'm inviting everyone now just to think about what your social media habits are. And so I have a workbook just for you. It is called Embrace a Social Media Detox. And in that workbook, you can, see, how bad is your addiction is. And, there's a questionnaire to, to identify that and to see how that detox is going to look like. And it's the whole workbook kind of gets you to that. And really pay attention, because when you make a little difference in your day, it can just escalate to the big results. And don't forget that especially social media not only impacts your life, but those that are around you. So you have to be very careful about that.
That is such a good gift and really relevant, because I feel like, the messages, they go off on your phone, and which is not so bad, but when you're doing other things and your phone's just going, I just feel the stress burning up inside of me. So I'm really looking forward to doing that detox. And, I feel like I just want to turn the whole thing off for like a month. I'll see how I go.
And, it should be. And the sad part is about that our brain loves to do things uninterrupted. And that little chime on your phone or on your computer that says, hey, you just got an email, and hey, somebody wrote something on Facebook. Please turn those off, because it takes brain about 20 minutes to go back to the same productivity way you were. So imagine that you're continuously getting that bling, 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 bling all through the day. You get no work done. And you think you're multitasking, but such a thing as multitasking really does not exist, because especially if you're doing something creative, you think that you did a good job, and then tomorrow you look up at it again like, who wrote this? I cannot believe it. This is so bad. Well, because you cannot do things at the same time. Brain doesn't work that way. We think that
when you do focus, when you're doing, I used to do so many things all at once, and now I just bring it back down to that one thing that I'm focusing on. And we'd even joke like, I'm being like a man. I can only do one thing at a time. Like we used to always joke about that, but now I'm like, I just find more enjoyment. If I'm going to write emails for my clients, for my list, and there's a message I really want to get out, and I really want them to hear it. And if I'm in that zone and I've got that feeling inside of me, and I'm thinking about the person that I'm writing to, and I'm just in that zone, and I just write something that's really, I feel good about, other people might not like it, but I feel good about. But if everything's going off, like you said, then you just feel like you're getting stuff done and you're distracted, and then you feel like you have to get back into it again. And like you said earlier, us women are emotional creatures. And so, I feel enjoyment by putting my emotion in that email. But if I've got all these things going off, like you're saying, then that's pulling my emotion in and out, and it ends up becoming stress. So very, very good advice from you today and very needed.
And talking about emotions, and especially women who have a tendency of worrying so much, schedule your worry time. I'm serious. Like you get a thought like, oh my gosh, I'm worried about this. Have your worrying list and write it down. Like, oh, I think, this client is going to cancel, or my child will never come back from seeing a friend or something that you worry about.
Yeah.
And then designate a specific worry time in like once a week or like twice a week, and say, okay, for 15 minutes, put in your calendar, and you say, I'm going to worry about those things. And then you pull up that list when your worry time comes, right? And then you read it. I can guarantee you will look at that list and you're going to be like, who was I worried about that? My child was fine, it had fun and came back, and it was meeting with the client, went okay. And that way you showing your brain that, you see, even if you were worried, things turn out well. So also you can make another list when you thought that things will turn out bad, but actually turn out very well for you. And then read that too when you start worrying.
Yeah, I love that tip. I love little mind hacks, and how it actually, because these things do actually teach the brain, and it's surprising how easy we can teach our brains to act differently. And like what you said earlier with the reframing, tip, and then doing that one, I love that. Schedule in some worry time and put the things on the worry list. And it was a little bit of a technique like that I use for sleep. When I would have racing mind, I'd write everything down. And if I thought about it, I'd be like, I've written that down. I don't have to think about that now. So it kind of works in that way too. And I know that method works. So I love that, scheduling the worry time. So, you may have your promise jars with you as well today. So have a think about that. Maybe you might put something in your promise jar about stress, taking on some of these tips from Lolita. They're amazing. Mind hacks that you can use. So go ahead and write all this in your journal, or hit replay and watch it a couple of times. And there's a lot in this that you're going to learn from. So I really want to thank you from being here today and sharing your time with us and sharing your expertise around stress. I think it's a very much needed topic that we probably don't look at often enough, if I'm honest. That would be me. Speak for myself. So thank you again for being here today. I really appreciate you.
Well, thank you so much. I had pleasure being here.
And if you are listening to this session on Facebook or YouTube, the link, you'll need to register to get access to Lolita's special gift, and the link to that is in the description on this video. And then that way you'll get access to all the other speaker videos as well, or episodes I should call them, and access to all their free gifts, plus also information on how you can watch on demand and get full access to the whole show. So thanks again for being here, and I will see everyone tomorrow. Thanks again, Lolita. I appreciate you being here.
Thank you.
Bye for now.